Jonathan Rea has dominated World Superbike for the past 3 years, and now series organizers are making a radical change to the technical regulations for the 2018 season in an effort to promote greater parity and reduce costs for private teams. The class-leading Kawasaki's and Ducatis will effectively have their wings clipped by a shift in philosophy. Arguably, the most significant change next year will be the introduction of mandatory rev limits for each manufacturer. New limits will be based on a calculation of 3.3% above the stock rev limiter. The series will test all of the homologated machines to determine their stock limits, and every race bike will be equipped with crankshaft sensors. Scrutineers will then be able to determine if the engine has exceeded its prescribed limit and for how long. Those who overdo it will be penalized. The series will then use changes in 250 revolutions per minute increments at every third round to further balance performance. Initial engine RPM limit by manufacturer: Aprilia 14,700 revolutions per minute, BMW 14,700 revolutions per minute, Ducati 12,400 revolutions per minute, Honda 14,300 revolutions per minute, Kawasaki 14,100 revolutions per minute, MV Agusta 14,700 revolutions per minute, Suzuki 14,700 revolutions per minute, Yamaha 14,700 revolutions per minute. Race title winning Kawasaki will effectively lose 1,200 revolutions per minute. Factories that have been less successful in recent years, like Honda and MV Agusta, should see little change. Privateer teams, however, will now be able to purchase factory parts at a set price. For the likes of Puchetti Kawasaki, the price cap is a godsend. In its first season of World's BK competition, the Italian squad claimed a podium finish with Leon Haslam at Donington Park. In general terms, however, the team was at a disadvantage to the factory machines. This past season, Puchetti undertook an exhaustive engine development program. Now, with the development taking place at the factory, Puchetti and others can simply buy the relevant parts and install them on its bikes. Kawasaki and Ducati have been winning for years because those factories have invested the most resources in the series. Dorna and the FIM, which drafted the new regulations, are keen to show that investment is the key to winning. For Scott Smart, the man tasked with writing the rules, the goal was to create a more level playing field and closer racing. The intention is to afford all teams with the same equipment as the factories, creating more competitive machinery while reducing costs. There are a lot of benefits to these changes, but the biggest factor behind the regulations is that we want more exciting racing, Smart said. The 2018 regulations will allow private teams to have access to the same engines and power of the factory teams. This will make them more competitive but also improve reliability. The lower RPM will mean that engine life will be improved. A strong privateer team that has the right rider and good mechanics can be competitive. When we changed Supersport so that the electronics could be a kit level, some teams were able to make a big step forward in the class, Smart added. We expect the same to happen with these changes. Shortly before the American round of the series this past July at Mazda Raceway, Laguna Seca, Dorna CEO Carmelo Ezpeleta commented that World's BK would revert to STK 1000 regulations and that a control ECU would be used. This set off alarm bells in the paddock. Manufacturers use World Superbike to develop their electronics because they're not allowed to do that in MotoGP any longer, Smart said. If we used a control ECU, we could lose that investment. Under the new rules, factory teams must earn concession points before developing new parts. The championship leader cannot make changes, but after 3 rounds a manufacturer with a certain number of points will be allowed a new variation of its engine. Approved parts are effectively anything available to all entries at a set price. Triple clamps, swing arms, linkages, and other chassis parts will be sold to any team on the grid. Concession parts, camshafts, flywheels, valve springs, etc., will also be developed by manufacturers. The move has been met with skepticism by some and embraced by others. Series runner-up Chaz Davies welcomes the changes as a new opportunity but also feels they may be unfair to Ducati and Kawasaki. Our bike is good, but at the end of the day we are not 3-time champions, Davies said. My teammates have won only 1 race in 4 years. Take me out of the equation and you'd have Kawasaki domination for the last few years. Overall, though, I think the changes should be good, and it's up to us to do our best to make sure that we are still at the front next year. My only concern is that even though the show is important, it's tricky to know where they stop with these regulations. Ray also has concerns. I think it's strange to have a situation where you curtail the fastest teams, he said. In their series, such as Moto, they gave teams concessions for what they were lacking. They tried a softer tire, more fuel, unlimited testing, lots of things. But in the end, bringing down the cost of customer bikes made the biggest change. Instead of cutting the feet off the top teams, they could have done this in another way. I hope this works and that the show is better because I'm a superbike guy through and through, Ray concluded. I've been in this paddock for 10 years, and I love the championship. I hope for the real fans of superbikes that we have great racing.